Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Harmeet Kaur, and I will be continuing with your CNCC1 sessions. So I think previously in the previous section, you have gone through unit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And today I will be taking the next units, which are unit number 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay. So can I start? Everyone, are you people there listening to me? Can I start with the session?
Yes, you can start.
Okay. Okay. So I'll just share my presentation with you and I'll discuss unit number 7 first. So just give me a second, I'm just presenting. Yeah, so can you see this particular presentation class? Can you all see this presentation?
Yes, I can see
Okay,
it.
okay. So I'll just start, just give me a second. So in today's session, the first unit which we are going to start with is CNCC1 Block 3, that is Nutrition for the Family. And we are first going to start with unit number 7. So unit number 7 deals with the basic principles of meal planning and particularly meal planning for the adult. So in your previous section, you must have gone through the very basics of planning. Herein, we are starting with the concept of what is called as meal planning. So as we all know that, at our homes also, there is, some individual who is responsible for providing us with the meals. Okay. So every day they have to take this decision that what needs to be cooked, for how many people it needs to be cooked, what is the menu that has been planned, and so on. So when we talk in day-to-day life, meal planning is a very practical exercise, very simple exercise in which we actually apply the knowledge regarding food, nutrient, what are our requirements.
That it is
Yeah, is there some problem?
letters are not visible for me. You can increase on the letters.
Just give me a second. Yeah, can you please repeat? What is the issue?
The slide is not yet.
The slide did not change. Okay, I'll see to it.
Mm.
I'll see to it. Okay. So basically, when we talk about the meal planning is the simple activity in which actually you apply your existing, knowledge regarding food, nutrient, and individual preferences from your family or for the ones who are planning your meals too. So in other terms, whenever we plan a meal, that means we are planning for providing adequate nutrition. Because whenever we are planning meals, our basic story or basic fundamental thing behind planning a meal is what? That we need to meet the nutritional requirement. So in our family, we have a kid, we also have elderly, we have some youngsters, we have some adolescent girl. Okay, so each and every member of the family will have different nutritional requirement. So whenever we plan any type of meal, it first becomes essential for us to plan meals for each and every member of the family so that their nutritional requirements can be met. Okay, so when we look at the aims or what are the objectives of planning of the meals, the first one is obviously that you have to cater to the nutritional requirements of the family members. Okay, so you have to take into account that what is your family size and what is the composition of the family. Composition of the family means that what are the number of kids which are there? Do we have some pregnant or lactating or do we have some elderly in our family? Because nutritional requirement will change accordingly. So the first basic aim of planning is related to what? That we are planning with the aim to fulfill the nutritional requirements of our family members. The second objective of meal planning is related to what is known as planning within family income. Okay, so whenever I am planning my meals for my family, or I have to plan it for somebody else. So supposingly I am planning meal for a hostel girl, or I am planning meals for people who are working and I'm staying as a working women hostel, etc. Or planning meals for some school canteen. So in all these conditions, it becomes essential that whenever I'm planning meal, this meals have to be within family income. So you have to utilize your resources in terms of money which is available in the best possible way you can. Then the other aim of objective is also to help in proper purchasing of food items, their preparation, and also that how you are going to serve that. Finally, you have to economize on time, labor, and fuel. So, whenever I'm planning my meal, I will actually help in economizing on my time. I will be economizing on my labor, the amount of manpower or manual work which I have to do, and also on the fuel. And lastly, it becomes important that whatever meals you are providing, no doubt they should be nutritionally adequate, they should be, within the family income, they should be helping in your purchase, service, economizing on time, labor, and fuel. But along with that, it becomes very, very important that you provide variety in the meals. Okay, so every time, every day, whenever we are planning any type of meal, it is essential for us to provide variety. If we are providing same type of menu on regular basis, it will turn out to be monotonous. Okay, the individual, the family, the people involved will get tired of eating same and same food again and again. So these were the very basic of what we call as that what are the aims of meal planning. Then whenever we are planning meals, okay, so supposedly I ask you that you are a person who will be planning meals for your family, or you have to plan what needs to be made in dinner or breakfast or lunch or whatsoever. So there are different factors which play a key role, or the factors which will affect my meal planning. So can you all see this particular slide, which is starting from nutritional adequacy? Is this visible now? Can you all see this slide, class?
I
Yes, ma'am.
guess I
Okay, okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Let's do tomorrow for me. I'm not thinking.
I think there is some issue on your side then because I have shared my screen and others are able to see that. So just see your settings that why you are not able to see this. Okay. So when we are talking about that, what are the different factors which actually, affect our meal planning? Obviously, the number one factor turns out to be nutritional adequacy. Okay. So we all are studying nutrition here. Okay. We are all studying the very basics of food planning, nutrition, etc. Right. So whenever we are planning meal, the first basic factor which affects our meal planning is what? Nutritional adequacy. Okay, because the main aim behind planning these meals is what? That these meals, whatever you're planning, should actually fulfill the nutritional requirement of each and every individual in your family. Okay, so whatever the recommendations are, you are able to provide them with that nourishment. So basically you have to plan meals which are balanced. And I hope that you people understand that what do we mean by balanced meal. Balanced meal corresponds to meals which have which have adequacy, which are adequate in terms of different food groups. So when we talk about food groups, the meals should be providing balanced diet. That means you should include foods from all three major groups, which are known as to be energy giving food, bodybuilding food, protective and regulatory food groups. So these three are the major food groups. So whenever we are categorizing our food based on what do they give us, okay, so we divide our food into three major categories. First one are what? Energy given. Second one are what? Bodybuilding. And third category is related to protective or regulatory food. Okay, so whenever you are planning these, they will be providing nutritional adequacy when you are including food from all three major food groups. then obviously you have to take into consideration the economic factor. Okay, so what all things a family can afford. Okay, so whatever their income is, within that only you are going to provide them with meals. Okay, then one of the major aspects which affects your meal planning is related to food acceptance. Okay, so no matter you have planned a very good menu for me, for my family, but the thing is that there are certain things in that which I don't like it. Okay, or my culture, my society, or my religion does not allow me to consume that. Okay, so whenever we are planning meal for anyone, okay, for any family, any institution, it becomes important for us to see that whether these meals are acceptable or not. Okay, so particularly in Asian culture, in Indian culture, there are certain religions or certain cultural beliefs which does not allow some of us to consume non-vegetarian food items. Okay, so most of us will be vegetarian. Among non-vegetarian food items also, there are certain prohibited foods which are not consumed by particular communities. So whenever I am planning meal for someone, food acceptance is one of the major factors that will be expected in my plan. Okay, and how that needs to be done is, firstly, you will be including traditional or region specific food. Okay, so obviously whatever meal or food ingredients which are available in India will be very different from Africa, that will be very different from Japan and things like that. So we have to see that what are the traditional or region specific meals which are accepted by that particular community. Then obviously you will be taking into account the religious consideration, which play a very, very vital role, particularly in India. Then you also have to keep in mind the likes and dislikes of the individual. So while planning meals, for example, say you're planning a meal for a child, okay, and we know that children are not very fond of green leafy vegetables or other seasonal vegetables. Then while planning meal, you have to think that how you can incorporate these in the diet of these children. Okay, so the next factor is what, that you have to keep in mind the likes and dislikes of the individual. Then the other factor is availability. Okay, so whatever you are planning should be easily available to you. Okay, like here in India or in other countries also, there are certain things which might be available in one region, and there might be the same thing which might not be available in the other. Okay, so you have to include region specific and traditional foods when you are planning the meals. You have to again keep the religious context, likes and dislikes. But the other thing that is very, very important is also related to meal frequency and meal pattern. Okay, so we must understand here that meal frequency means how frequently the meal needs to be consumed. Okay, and meal pattern, we say that what is the pattern of eating. So as adults we know that we consume three major meals, which are what? Breakfast, lunch and dinner. Okay, but if I have a kid at home, okay, so in that case their frequency of consumption will be higher than in case of the adults, because they will not be sitting at one position and eating. Okay, just give me a second. There's some question. I think someone raised the hand. Okay. So when we are planning for adults, when we are planning for elderly, when we are planning for pregnant and lactating women, or we are planning for children, that will be totally dependent at what is your target group for whom you are planning meal, because depending upon your target group you will be deciding upon that what are the number of meals that needs to be consumed and what is their specific meal pattern. Okay, then we have to, whenever we are planning any sort of meal for any institution or community or family, we have to economize on time, labor and fuel, because these three things have to be taken care to. So I need to consume meals which do not consume much of my time, or which are time efficient, which are efficient in my labor work. Okay, which do not cost me much of manual thing, or I might not be involved in cooking for the whole day. And finally, it should also economize on fuel. So basically, these things will actually help in planning my menus for several days in advance. So, we are talking about family here. where we are involved in menu planning for day-to-day basis. Okay, that I had a breakfast. Now the next thing is that what needs to be cooked in for lunch or for the dinner. Okay, but in some larger institutions, like in case of hospitals or certain, cafeterias or hostels, there what happens is that the people who are involved in meal planning, they do meal planning for 15 days or 10 days or 7 days. So all the planning has to be done in advance. And then how this will help you? This will help you that you make sure that there is minimum repetition of food and food combination. Okay, so let's see that I had some baked beans or some rice preparation in my dinner. So same is not repeated the next day, because that will lead to monotony factor. Okay, you will get bored. So whenever we are planning for menus in several day advance, we make sure that there is minimum repetition of certain food and food combinations. This will also help you to make purchases, prior. Okay, so I know that next week I will be requiring these all food items, so I will be going and purchasing them accordingly. Okay, then I can also sometimes meal planning will help me in using the leftover food from the previous meal. So there is some, vegetable which is left from the previous meal, or there is something, or some of the ingredient, or some rice left over from the previous meal. So how judiciously, how intelligently I can use this leftover to make something new for my next meal. Okay, and this will also help me to do certain pre-preparation in advance. Okay, so there are certain, food or food items which require very intelligent work. Okay, so for example, I want to make some cutlets, or I want to make some dish which involves baking and everything. So when I plan these meals in advance, I know that there are certain pre-preparation steps that I need to do it. So maybe I can do that previously, so that that will save my time. Okay, then there has to be variety in the meals. Okay, so by variety I mean what all things that, see, a variety in terms of meal can come from various factors. Okay, so whenever we talk about variety in meals, this variety in meal will come from variety in terms of color. Okay, in terms of flavor, and also in terms of texture. Okay, so whenever I say that you need to provide variety in the meals, so by variety I mean these three things. So variety will be either in terms of color or flavor or texture. Okay, and how we can have them? Variety in color will come when you are selecting different food items. Okay, so I am making some green leafy vegetable. I am making some baked vegetable which has different color of vegetables in that. So that is going to provide me with colors. Okay, so if you are having a plate which does not have much of fruits, vegetables, or different color items, that will be a very monotonous plate. Okay, so an attractive plate will be what, which will have different colors in that, and especially in case of children, in case of kids. Okay, so they will be attracted to food when you provide this particular variety. Okay, so the first variety we talk is in the terms of color. Then we have flavors. Okay, so like in India, we have different delicacies with respect to rice also, or with respect to tea also. So, you can make use of different spices and condiments, and you will see that, a simple dish like rice can be made in different flavors. So you can have a boiled rice type of a thing. You can add certain vegetables to that, which will add color to it. And you can also add certain, spices to that. Okay. So that will bring about variety in terms of flavors. Okay. And finally, we have variety in terms of textures. Okay. So in terms of textures, I'm here. If you're looking into your manuals, this is the chapter which I am taking. Okay. So in terms of texture, the variety will come in from where? The variety will particularly come from the fact that what are the different cooking methods you are using. Okay, so for example, like some of us consume, fish. Okay, so this fish can be a grilled fish, it can be steamed fish, okay, or it can be a fish curry, right? So now the thing is that food is same, it is the fish, but what we are going to do is we are actually providing variety in terms of texture. Okay, so this variety in terms of texture will come from what fact, that what is the cooking method you have used, right? So when I'm grilling my fish, the cooking technique is totally different. I'm steaming my fish, the technique is different. So by involving different foods or different cooking methods, I am providing the variety in terms of texture. Okay, if you have same food of same texture regularly, you will again be very bored. Okay, so we in our diet certain type of foods which we like, which are crisp. Okay, sometimes we like foods which are soft. So this variety in meals in terms of texture can be provided by using different cooking methods. Okay, so this is the next factor which actually affects the meal planning. So that is what? That is variety in meals. Next is satiety value. Okay, what do we mean by satiety value is satiety means feeling of fullness or feeling of satisfaction. So the major aim for providing meals or providing meal planning is not is obviously to provide adequate amount of nourishment to that particular subject or that particular target population. But apart from them, what becomes important is that we need to be full. That meal should provide me with the feeling of fullness. I'm hungry, I want to have that food. That will be providing with all the factors. But the basic thing is that it should provide me with the feeling of fullness. It should relieve my hunger. Okay. So it should give you the feeling of satisfaction, fullness, so that now you are no more hungry. So these are some of the basic factors which we say affect your meal planning. So I'll just repeat them and then we can discuss if you have any questions. Okay. So we started off with some of the very basic factors which affect your meal planning. So the first one was nutritionally adequate meals. So all the meal planning, whatever you are doing, it should fulfill the nutritional requirement of all the people in your family. Okay. Second, you have to plan balanced meal. And as we discussed, how you're going to plan balanced meal when you will be including food items from the different food groups. And majorly the three food groups which we have are energy giving, bodybuilding, and regulatory and protective. Then you have to take into account the economic consideration. Okay, so if economically a family is very sound, they have good resources available, you can go in for expensive food items. But where we have limited resources, I have limited money to spend on my food, I have to see that what best can be done. Okay, but this does not mean that we are compromising on the nutritional adequacy. Then food acceptance. So as I told you, whatever meal you are planning, it should be acceptable. Okay, so this should be acceptable in terms of traditions or regions. It should be acceptable in terms of religious considerations, and it should also take into account the likes and dislikes of an individual. Then it should be available. Okay, so that particular food item or whatever meal planning you are doing, so the ingredients for that will be readily available to me. So like in India, we have on the southern India side coastal areas, so all the seafood items like crabs or fish are very readily available there. Okay, but on the other hand, when I talk about the other part of the India, we do not have coastal region. So yes, these things will be available, but these are not readily available. So because I'm not nearby, I'm not residing in a coastal area, so that will include my transportation and things will be much more expensive to me. Okay, so that is why we say that always plan meals which are available, which are locally available. Then we discussed about meal frequency and meal pattern. So we have to take into account that not everyone in the family will be having same meal pattern or same frequency. So kids and elderly will consume meals more frequently, right? But in case of adults, might be we have a three meal pattern and in between I can have snack here and there. Okay. Then I have to economize on time, labor, and fuel. And how we can do that is by all these factors. So by planning menus several day in advance. Okay, then other things which we just discussed. And lastly, you have to provide meals which are offering variety. So this variety can be in terms of color, flavor, and texture. Variety in terms of color will come when you select different type of foods in terms of colors, which will be providing you variety. flavor will come when you are serving your food or using different spices and condiments that will illustrate different flavors in your food. And finally, texture will come when you are using different types of cooking methods. And lastly, the major aim of any meal planning is to provide satiety. Okay, so any meal plan should be providing you with this feeling of satisfaction, relieving hunger, and feeling of fullness. Okay, so these were the different factors which affect your meal planning. So any doubts, anything you want to discuss here, you're most welcome. So you can unmute yourself and you can please ask me questions or if you have any doubts. Anything, class? Or you want to add on something? You're most welcome. Is this clear, class? Yes or no, please say that. Or please type in the chat box. Class, is this clear? Yes or no?
On my side, it's not yet clear. Slides are not clear
Okay.
for me.
So can I move ahead? Can I go to the next section now?
I'm not seeing anything.
Can you hear me at least? Arjuna, can you hear me? Okay. So others
Yes,
are
I
able to
hear
see my
you.
screen, right? I shared your PDF also for the book and the PowerPoint also. Yeah.
Okay,
So
madam.
next I'm moving on to the next section. So after understanding the very basics of meal planning, that how do we plan meals, what are the different factors which you will be taking into consideration while planning meals, we are now moving on to meal planning for specific individuals, okay, or specific target audience. Yeah. Yes, please ask your question.
Please, can you put your presentation into slide?
Yeah, can you please repeat? Please repeat it. What are you saying?
I
Yeah.
said, please, can you put your slide in presentation view so that we can see the written because it is too small for us to see.
Okay, so I'll share my presentation. I thought you people have your manual, so that is why I was sharing that. Okay, so I'll share my presentation. Just give me a second. Yeah, now is it visible? Is it visible now, class?
Yes, it's visible, but it's too small.
It's too small, but I have, wait, I'll just. Yeah, now it will be better, I guess.
Yeah, it's a bit better.
Yeah, it's better. Okay. So here and now we are going to discuss that, what are the specific. It's better? Yeah, okay.
Better now.
So here and now we are going to discuss that, what are the physiological changes, what are the changes which occur in your body in, different phases of life, and how nutritionally it is important to understand that what are the nutrient of importance and how we are going to make changes or provide means for this specific adult. Okay, so the first target audience which we are catering to is whom? A adult. Okay, so here we will be now moving on to that what are the different changes that takes place. Okay, and how we are going to plan or help out these people with their nutritional requirements. Okay, so technically adult is a term which is used for any age group for people who are 20 years and above. Okay, so basically if you look at into the adulthood phase, this adulthood phase is divided into two periods. So we have young adults and we have older adults. The difference between young adult and older adult is what? That in initial periods of our adult life, when we grow up, okay, we are 20 something. So in that case what happens is that here the tissue breakdown is not predominant. Okay, so basically you have capacity to replace the worn out tissues and everything. But as we age, like a 20 or 30-year adult will be very different from an adult who is in his 50s, 60s or 70s, right? Why? Because there, that period of older adult or elderly is characterized by excessive breakdown of tissues. Okay, so your body is no longer able to compensate for the tissue loss adequately. So that is why among adult also we have two major classes. First one is related to the young adult, and second is related to being an older adult. Okay, so the difference is what? That in case of young adult we are very stable. Okay, there is tissue breakdown, but that is not very predominant, and you have capacity to replace the worn out tissue. While when we are elderly, when we are older adults, our body loses this capacity. There is excessive breakdown of tissues and cell which we are not able to compensate. Okay, so when I talk about aging, by adult we mean what? That we are growing up. So the other term for growing up is related to being what? Aged. So this is known as what? Aging. Okay, so we have to understand that what are the different physiological changes that affects us. Okay, because these physiological changes will lead to different nutritional requirement. Okay, so the effect of aging on the basic functioning of some of the specific body functions will be discussed. Like first is kidney function. Okay, so we all know that kidney is our filtration unit. Okay, it filters waste. Okay, and whenever I talk about kidney, we know that there is nephrons. Okay, so these are functional kidney cells which are there. So now what happens is that when we age, okay, there is marked reduction in the number of the working or functioning kidney cells. So as a result, what will happen is my kidney functioning is affected. So your body will not be able to effectively remove waste products from the body. Okay, so the first physiological change which we see during aging is change in the kidney function. Second is number of changes that occurs in our digestive tract. Okay, so when we talk about the functioning of digestive tract, the first change which we see is related to your taste buds. Okay, so we all know that in mouth, in your tongue, you have these specialized cells. Okay, which are sensitive to taste. So whenever I am eating something which is sweet, sour, salty, so this sensitivity is dependent on my taste bud. When we age, we grow old, we see that there is substantial decrease in the taste buds in our mouth. Okay, so as a result, you might have noticed that some elderly in our house, grandparents and people, so you might be finding that salt and sugar is very much good in the meal. Okay, but they always complain that no, this has less amount of salt, or this has less amount of sugar. Why? Because when they are aging, the number of taste buds are decreasing, and because their taste buds number are decreasing, they become less sensitive to particular taste. Okay, then there might be also reduction in saliva. Okay, so saliva is secreted in your mouth, and basically this helps in swallowing. Okay, so when we age, particularly in case of elderly, the amount of saliva which is secreted gets reduced. So as a result, what happens is that sometimes swallowing of food might be difficult for me. Okay, the other problem which occurs is losing teeth. Okay, so obviously chewing will be becoming very, very difficult. So when I will be aging, I'll have to see that, what are the food items in my menu planning which needs to be changed in terms of, consistency. So I might not be able to consume certain raw fruits or vegetables. So I need to peel them off. I need to grate them, make them into puree, because, losing of teeth is a common problem. Then as you go down the digestive tract, okay, after changes in your mouth with respect to taste bud, decrease concentration of saliva, losing of teeth, the other thing which is related to digestive tract functioning is reduced amount of acids. Okay, so we know that digestion, absorption, this requires number of juices which are being secreted in your digestive tract. Okay, so particularly there is reduction in secretion of all these digestive and juices will absorb the food. So as a result, there might be problems in digestion and absorption. Okay, so food will stay in for a longer period of time because there is reduction in these juices. And usually you will see that elderly complain of feeling fullness and heaviness. Okay, so they do not consume food that frequently because there is a change in the secretion of these particular juices. The most common thing that sets in when you age is also related to the muscle integrity. Okay, so whenever we age, we see that there is a loss of muscle integrity, particularly throughout your gastrointestinal system and particularly in the intestine. So what happens is that these muscles of the digestive tract, they become weak. Okay, and this leads to problem in the movement of the food. Okay, so the food is passed on or moves very, very slowly. Okay, and the common thing which sets in case of elder is constipation. Okay, so these are all the changes which are related to digestive tract functioning. Okay, the third major change that is related to aging is your skeletal system. Okay, so skeletal system is all related, majorly related to your bone. Okay, so we know that your bones are majorly comprising of two major minerals, which are calcium and phosphorus. Okay, but as we age, there is demineralization that occurs. Okay, mineralization means when mineral get deposited in your bones. Okay, so for strong bones, healthy bones, we see that there should be mineralization of calcium and phosphorus, which will help in good bone health. But when we age, what happens is slowly there is demineralization of these minerals. So basically calcium and phosphorus, these these minerals, they move out from your bone, and when they move out from your bone, this results in thinning of the bone, which is commonly referred to as bones which become very, very brittle, very, very weak. You are more prone to fractures, and this is particularly known as the condition of osteoporosis. Okay, so these are the major physiological changes which takes place. And why it is important to understand these changes is because then only we will be able to understand that what type of nutrient, what type of meals which are we are going to provide in case of adults. So is this clear? Anything you want to discuss in physiological changes in aging? Anything that is not clear you want me to repeat or you want to discuss? So all of you, are you very clear of the physiological changes that take place during elderly? Okay. So after, yeah, good.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, after this, when we have understood that, what are the different changes which take place physiologically in one's body when we are aging, okay, now it becomes very essential for us to understand that what is the requirement of different nutrients which is based on these changes. Okay, so I'll come on to that. See, now these are the recommended dietary intakes for adults. Okay, So whenever we talk about the dietary intake of adults, we say that in case of adult, their recommendations, their dietary intakes, okay, are dependent on three major categories. So what are these three major categories? These three major category is first their activity level, okay. Second is what? The gender, okay. And third is what? The body size and composition, right? So these are the three things which have a basic impact, or which which have influence on the nutrient requirements of adults. So always remember that in case of adult, the nutrient requirements are particularly dependent on that what is the activity level of that particular adult, what is the gender, male, female, or what is the body size and composition. So firstly, we are going to understand that how does activity has an impact on the recommendation of different nutrients in case of adults. Okay. So, in India, we have classified the activity depending upon the different occupations. Okay. Because obviously, if I talk about calories, the total energy requirements, I hope, we can understand that if I am a person who is, involved in some vigorous physical activity, okay, I am a person who is involved in some strenuous work, I am working in some factory, okay, or I am a sports person, then obviously my total energy requirements or calorie requirement, which will be much above than the requirement of a person who is doing a sitting job. Okay, so I am a person who is sitting and doing my work. I do not have some kind of laborious work, so my total energy requirement cannot be compared to the person who is involved in certain moderate or vigorous physical activity. Okay, so the three activity patterns which we commonly divide our physical activity into are sedentary, moderate, and heavy. Okay, so sedentary means people who do most of the work sitting. Okay, so all teachers or clerical job workers, or people who are working in offices, or homemakers or housewife who have certain sort of household help will come under the category of sedentary. Okay, so sedentary involves light work. Okay, then we have moderate. So here the work is neither too light, which can be compared to a sedentary worker, but they are also not very heavy on work. Okay, so somewhere in between, the people who are having just moderate amount of activity which involves use of their both hands and feet. So people who are like fishermen, who are involved into some agricultural things, okay, or housewife who do their housework themselves manually. So all these people will come under moderate one. While if you are someone who is working as a stone cutter, or you are working in some agricultural land, you are a mine worker, which involves very hard, you are lifting something, or you are into some sport category, so you will be under which category? Heavy. Okay, so whenever I talk about the activity, it is important first to understand that what is the activity level of that particular adult. So a sedentary will require the least calorie, moderate will be the next, and maximum amount of calorie will be required by a person who is involved in heavy work. Then we say the total energy requirement. Okay, so the most important thing which we need to consider in case of adult is related to what should be my calories, what should be my calorie intake. Okay, so whenever I talk about total calorie, the first thing which I take into account was what? Physical activity, right? So if you are a person and I say that you require 2000 kilocalorie, or you require 1500 kilocalorie, so from where I am calculating that what is the amount of calorie you need to consume in. Okay, so the three major things that are related to your total energy requirement. Okay, so whenever we are computing energy requirement for the adult, three major things that come into role is what? Physical activity. So now you know that physical activity is of three types. You have sedentary, moderate, and heavy. So whatever category you are in, you will be requiring the total calories that ways. The second important thing is what? BMR. Okay, BMR stands for what? Basal metabolic rate. Okay, So always remember that what is BMR? BMR is basal metabolic rate. And basal metabolic rate is one of the major factors that will be considered while you are calculating the total calorie requirement. Okay, so what is BMRC? I said that we are involved in different physical activities in our daily lives. Okay, I am speaking, you people are listening, we are doing some work. Okay, I might be doing some cooking and things like that, right? So all these are physical activities which I can divide on the basis of how strenuous they are into moderate, sedentary, or heavy, right? But on the other hand, there are certain activities which we do continuously. Okay, so whenever we are at rest, okay, I'm sleeping, I am laid down, right? But what happens is that there are certain activities which still continue. Okay, so for example, that heart rate, okay, filtration, okay, pumping of my heart, kidney. So these are, and there are hundreds and thousands of reactions which takes place in our body, right? So what happens is that basal metabolic rate contributes to that. Okay, so what is basal metabolic rate? Basal metabolic rate is the amount of energy, amount of calorie you will be required for performing certain vital metabolic functions. What do I mean by vital metabolic functions? So I am in a state of complete rest. So physically and mentally I am at rest. Okay, but still my heart pumps blood. Okay, there is exchange of gases that my lungs involved in. Okay, my kidney is continuously involved in filtration. So whenever you are at rest physically and mentally also, then also there are certain vital basic functions in your body which are continuously going on, and they also require energy. So that is what corresponds to basal metabolic rate. Is this clear? Is this clear, class? The two components for computing energy.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So the first component while determining the energy requirement for adult is what? Physical activity. Second one is what? BMR. That is your basal metabolic rate. The third one is not very clearly defined in your manuals, but yes, because this is the very small one. Okay. So BMR contributes to maximum, followed by your physical activity. There is also a third little component which is known as thermic effect of food. Okay, so no doubt that your food, whatever food we are consuming, we have to oxidize that, and that will release energy to carry out different activities, right? But to oxidize that food also we require calories. So no doubt that food will provide you with calorie, but for providing that calorie, this food first needs to be oxidized. And to oxidize this food first, right, you will be requiring calories. Okay, so that is what we mean by thermic effect of food. So though this is a very little thing which is there, but yes, whenever we are computing the energy requirements for the adults, we do take into account. So these are the three important components which are related when we are coming on to the energy requirement for adult. So first is physical activity, second is BMR, and third is thermic effect of food. So this was the A factor. So where did we start from? I'll tell you. The first factor was what? Activity level on the recommendation. So A part is what? That what is the influence of different activity levels on recommendation. Okay. The B, if you remember, was related to what? That what is body size and composition. Okay, so among adults also you will see and you will realize that our recommendations are different. They vary for men and women. Okay, why? Because their body composition vary. Okay, their body composition is different. One of the factor is always that in majority of the cases, not all, but yes, majority of the population, you will see that women have lesser amount of energy and protein requirement. Why? Because in correspondence to their male counterparts, their age and activity level is also low. Okay, so if you compare men and women, so usually men have a higher activity level. Okay, and their body composition is such that they will be requiring more energy and protein. Okay, why? Because in case of men have more of active tissue. Okay, while in case of women, there is more of fat tissue, which we say inactive fat tissue. Okay, so basically the muscle tissue, the muscle mass, and the fatty tissue. Okay, so in case of man, you will see that there is higher amount of muscles in comparison to fat, whereas by default women tend to have more fat tissue in comparison to the muscle tissue. So the person who has more of a muscle tissue or muscle mass will require higher calories. So that is why when we take into account the recommendations, you see that energy requirements are more in case of men, because they have higher amount of muscle mass, muscle tissue, in comparison to women who have more of the fat mass, okay, which is the inactive tissue. Then the other thing is also that in case of protein, the protein requirements are based on per kg body weight. Okay, so though your energy requirements are based on your activity level, if I am a sedentary worker, I will be requiring lesser calories than if I am a moderate worker or a heavy worker. But my protein requirements totally depend on the weight. Okay, so recommendations say that adult roughly requires 0.83 grams of protein per kg body weight, and women will have a little lower weight than the men. Okay, so that is why we say that protein requirements are totally dependent on your adult. So let's understand this. For example, there is this adult man, okay, and one is in sedentary category and one is in the moderate category. Okay, so if the first one is in sedentary category, the other was in moderate category, you will see that their energy requirements will differ now, right? Because one is involved in light activity, the second one has some moderate activity which is going on. But when I talk about protein, okay, their protein requirement is not dependent on their work or activity level, that is dependent on their weight. So let's say this man A and man B both are 60 kgs. Okay, so what will be their requirement? 60 into 0.83, because this is the amount of protein that is required for an adult man. Okay, so you simply multiply 0.83 by whatever weight. So in this case, if it is 60 kg, so this man will roughly require 50 gram of protein. Okay, so whether he is a sedentary worker or a moderate worker or a heavy worker, when I am talking about protein requirements in case of adults are based on their body weight and not their activity level. While when I talk about total calorie requirements, these are totally dependent on the activity level. Okay, so sedentary, moderate, and heavy. Is this concept clear to all of you? Is this clear, class? I can repeat it if you want me to repeat.
It is
Clear?
clear.
Okay. There is some question. Let me come. What do you want me to repeat? The protein requirements?
Yes.
Yeah. So what we learned was that the protein requirement in case of adult is dependent on the body weight. Okay, so whatever your body weight is, in Indian recommendations, we say that it has to be 0.83. Okay, so 0.83 grams per kg body weight is the recommendation. Okay, so that means whatever your weight is, you multiply that by 0.83 and you will get to know that what is the amount of protein that needs to be taken in. Okay, while in case of
Okay.
calorie, that is dependent on your activity level. Okay, so a person who is involved in less strenuous activity, his or her work involves sitting, like teachers or students who are not involved in much of the manual work, so that person, that adult will be requiring lesser calories than a person who is involved in more rigorous work. So protein requirements are based on body weight. Okay, but your calorie requirements are based on what type of activity you are performing. Is this clear now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now next, the third factor which we discussed was related to what? Influence of age on the RDI. Okay.
Yes, ma.
Yeah, please continue. You want to ask something?
Do, do
Yeah.
Yes. DIT, what is the meaning of DIT?
Diet induced thermogenesis. I'll write in the chat box. This is not given in your manual. Diet
Okay, okay,
induced
okay.
thermogenesis.
Okay, thank you. Mm.
Okay, so thermic effect of food or diet induced thermogenesis is the same thing. Clear now? Okay. Now, the third thing which influences the recommendations in case of adult is the age. Okay. So now we know that when we are aging, there are, many physiological changes and other things which take place in your body. Okay. So actually what happens is that you cannot compare the requirement of a 20-year-old from a 40-year-old, and that for a person who is adult and who is in his or her 70s or 80s. Okay. Why? What will happen is there are two changes which will take place. Okay, so definitely age will have an impact on your recommendation, right? What will happen is you people now are very familiar with BMR. Now everybody understands what is your BMR, basal metabolic rate. You people know it, right? So what happened? So what happens is that whenever I just talked about BMR, right? Basal metabolic rate. Now, what will happen is that when I talk about BMR, as you age, as you grow, okay, your BMR tends to decrease. Is this clear? So whenever I talk of BMR, okay, when you age, okay, whenever you are aging, there is decrease in body functioning, okay, and this leads to what? Reduced BMR, right? And also when we age, the other thing which reduces is what? Our physical activity, okay? And we know that both these factors are the major components which determine your total calorie requirement, okay? So as a result, what will happen is that when we age, we need to decrease our total calories, okay? So might be a 20 or a 30-year-old is requiring 1800 to 2000 kilocalories, but if I am in my 60s and 70s, I need to reduce my calorie intake, because I know that in case of adult, total calorie or energy is dependent on that what physical activity I am doing and what is my basal metabolic rate. And when I will be aging, okay, this will be bringing about certain physiological changes in me. This will reduce my total BMR, and obviously with age we also tend to be involved in lesser of the physical activity. So when these two major components are decreasing, that actually leads to decrease in certain amount of energy. So is this clear, class? I hope this is clear to all of you now.
Yes.
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Then so now after understanding that what influences what, we are coming on to the last factor, which is meal planning for the adult. So whenever we are planning meal for the adults, we need to put in certain consideration that needs to be kept in mind. Firstly, whom we are planning. Okay, so we are planning for a young adult, older adult. Okay, we are planning for an adult male or a female, because next is what nutrient or which nutrients are of particular importance. So if she is a adult, she is a woman, she might require certain micronutrients in greater amounts in comparison to males. Okay, what food should I select in, what should be my full meal pattern or food pattern, and what are the specific consideration which I need to take care of. Okay, so as I told you that the in adulthood, nutrient requirements are basically for the maintenance. Okay, because growth factor has gone. Growth is maximum when you are in your adolescent phase. Okay, so this adulthood is related to what? Maintenance of your body. So you should whenever you are planning meals for the adult, you should include sufficient amount of food from all the three major categories, which are your energy giving, body building, and protected. So basically your energy giving foods are your carbohydrates and fats, your body building foods are your proteins, okay, and your protective and regulatory foods relate to your minerals and vitamins. Okay, then what should be the meal pattern? So the meal pattern of every adult will be very, very different. Okay, there is no right rule which works for one. So it is totally dependent on what type of occupation I am involved in. Okay, so whether I'm working in a day shift, I'm working in a night shift, I have a working pattern of or working hours from 9 to 6 or whatever, right? Because that will be totally dependent that at what time can I have my meals. Okay, so usually we say that the two major meals are lunch and dinner. Okay, breakfast is there, and breakfast should not be skipped in any case. Okay, but actually the dinners are the much enjoyable meals, because that is the meal which we enjoy with our family members. Okay, so that is taken for granted, that is taken as a leisure meal. But we have to understand that dinner has to be a good one but not a very heavy one, because after consuming dinner most of us lie down, we sleep, so there is no proper physical activity that goes in, and that can result in many problems. Okay, so these are the major meals. Then packed lunch are also common. So for all the adult people who are working, who are involved in some form of occupation, we say that they do carry some packed lunches for them. Okay, so this is the basic of planning in case of adults. Now there are certain specific consideration in case of a older adult. So older adult, if you remember, I told you ki here the tissue breakdown is much more, and not able to compensate that. Okay, so whenever we talk about older adults or elderly, there we need to understand that what type of meals we are providing them. We need to do certain modifications. Okay, and why these modifications are important? Because we have learned in the previous section that there are many physiological changes that take place. Okay, so during aging there is a problem of losing teeth, so you have to give meals which do not require much of mechanical output. Okay, chewing and much hard type of fruits and vegetables need to be avoided. Taste sensitivity is a big issue, so you can use some natural condiments or natural flavorings which will help in overcoming this. You have to include more of fruits and vegetables in the diet because these are antioxidants. Okay, so in aging when there is much of tissue breakdown, this will help as protective foods. Okay, then obviously older people who have complained of feeling of fullness or heaviness, because we have learned that the amount of juices which are secreted, there is less amount of physical activity, that will lead to these problems. So you have to, particularly in case of elderly, plan meals which are small but which are frequent. So nothing very heavy at a time which will give them a feeling of discomfort. So small and frequent meals. And finally, constipation is a common problem because their physical activity reduces, the muscle tone is gone. Okay, and because of that, constipation is a very common problem during old age. For that, you can ask them to consume good amount of liquids, a good intake of water. Along with that, fiber becomes very important. Okay, and also if they can be involved in some light walk and things like that, which can help in revealing the constipation. So these were the meal considerations which were related to adults. Okay, so just give me a second and I'll share your manual so that you know where you people are. So this was your unit 7. So I'll just have a glance at it. So we started off with the principles of meal planning and meal planning for the adults. Okay, and in this, I'll just enlarge this. If I think this will be better then. And herein we started off with what is the very basics of meal planning. What are the different functions or factors which affect your meal planning? Then we came on to the meal planning for an adult. Okay, in adult, we classified adult into two major classes, young adult and older adult. Okay, and then we just discussed that what are the different physiological changes that occurs during aging. Okay, so these changes were related to kidney functions, digestive tract functioning and skeletal system. Then we came on to that what are the recommended dietary intakes. Okay, and how these are influenced by different factors. So the basic factors which influence your intakes in case of adult, first one was activity level. So activity level is divided into three. You have sedentary, moderate and heavy. Okay, then we also did a brief concept regarding basal metabolic rate. Okay, so what is a basal metabolic rate? The rate or the energy which is required for doing work when we are at rest. Okay, so certain body processes like functioning of your heart, kidney, etc. This is all referred to your BMR. Okay, so BMR, physical activity, together with your diet-induced thermogenesis. This is the figure. Okay, so these are the major components which determine your energy requirement. Then it was influence of body size and composition. So herein we learned that, because the body size and composition of males and females also differ, so that is why an adult male will require different, nutrients in comparison to women. And lastly, aging. Okay, so with aging there is a total decrease in your body metabolism, by which your total BMR, basal metabolic rate, is reduced, and also your physical activity is reduced. Okay, so that is why there is overall less demand for the energy, and you have to bring down, you have to reduce, you have to cut down your total calorie intake when you age. Okay, and lastly, we consider that in particularly for elderly, what should be the changes. Okay, so these we have already discussed, that there are specific consideration, because during aging there is a problem of loose teeth. Okay, there is impaired taste sensitivity, you have to include more of protective food, and then there is feeling of fullness, constipation, etc., which needs to be catered to. So this was your unit 7. So I'll stop here for 5 minutes break, and you can please let me know if you want me to repeat anything or anything which is not clear, or if you want to add anything from your side. Yes, one by one you can unmute yourself and please ask the questions. Yeah, Abdul Rashid, you want to you have a question? Yeah, please ask. Unmute yourself and you can
No,
ask.
no question, ma. No question, ma.
No question.
Yes, no question, ma. It is clear.
Is it clear? Are you people understanding? Okay. So just give me 2 minutes and I'll start with the next unit. Okay. So you can have a break for 2 minutes and I can continue. Okay. Just give me 2 minutes.
Okay. Okay, okay.
Yeah. So let's start. Yes. So let's start with the next unit. That is unit 8. So, after understanding that what are the different factors which affect meal planning, particularly in case of adults. Okay, why? Because there are many physiological changes which occur during this period. Okay, so now we understand that when we age, there are changes which are involved in our digestive tract, which will have an impact on our total nutrient requirement, or what are the nutrients which will be affected by that. So after understanding that, we are next coming on to the meal planning for pregnant and lactating women. So I'll just share my screen. Yeah, can you see this PDF? Is this visible to all?
Yes, madam.
Okay. So, when we talk about adulthood, okay, like we discussed in, so we know that, the requirements of adult women are different from, men, because of their body composition, body size, and, the type of physical activity we are involved in. But herein, we must understand that during the adult phase, particularly in case of women, right, they undergo two most important physiological changes, okay, that are referred to as being pregnant and lactating. So, whenever these two phases are there, these are very physiologically stressful, okay, because they overtakes, a women body, because she has to nourish a developing fetus when she's pregnant, and later on, when she has a child, she has to initially, breastfeed him or her, breastfeed the child. So, the requirement, the nutritional requirement for children, the development of the fetus is all dependent on what type of meal this woman consumes, okay. So we first have to understand that what are the different changes that occurs during pregnancy and lactation, and what do these changes, or what are the nutrients which are influenced by these changes. So the first physiological special physiological period which we need to understand is related to what? Pregnancy, okay. So we know that roughly it is a period of 9 months, and technically we call that to be a period of 3 trimesters. So first 3 trimesters is the first trimester. Your 4th, 5th, 6th month corresponds to the second trimester, and last 3 months are referred to as the third trimester. Okay. So when we look into the, this is the very basic, growth and development of the fetus. So you can just go through it. If you have any doubts, you can ask me in the next session. But what we are more concerned is that, all these changes which you are seeing in this particular figure, the fetus is growing and all. So what are the changes that actually occur in the body, okay. So first we have to see that what are the different physiological changes that occurs during pregnancy, which will have an impact on what needs to be taken care of, what nutrient becomes important, and so on. So the first thing is that there are changes in the body organs, okay. So basically, along with the development of the placenta is something which will connect fetus to the mother, okay. So the exchange of nutrients, waste material, etc., that occurs through what? This all occurs through your placenta, okay. Now, whenever we talk about, growing fetus, right, so whenever the fetus is growing, it corresponds to the growth of uterus also, okay, and also the supporting muscles, because now uterus needs to increase in size, the muscles need to be strengthened, so that, this uterus can easily, accommodate the growing fetus. And as well as there is, increase in the breast size, the breast also grows. Why? Because immediately after the delivery, we know that this women will go into the phase of breastfeeding, okay. So these are the major changes which occur as far as, changes in body organs is considered. Then, there is a change in body metabolism, okay. So what is this body metabolism? This is again related to basal metabolic rate, okay. So now we understand that what is basal metabolic rate. Basal metabolic rate is what? When we are at rest and what important functions are being continuously going on in our body, okay. Now what happens is that when a lady is pregnant, in case of pregnancy, automatically pregnancy is related to increased BMR, okay. So if you compare a normal non-pregnant woman to a woman who is pregnant, okay, whose BMR will be more? Pregnant women will have a higher BMR. And we know that BMR determines your total calorie requirement, okay. So that is why a woman who is non-pregnant will require, comparatively lesser calories in comparison to women who is pregnant. Why? Because in case of pregnancy, BMR increases, and wherever your BMR increases, it will increase your total energy requirement. Is this clear till here?
Yes.
Okay, so the first change is in body metabolism, where we understand that pregnancy is associated with increased BMR, and with increased BMR, okay, your total calorie requirement will also be increased. Okay, next important change which occurs during pregnancy is what? Changes in the body fluid. Okay, so first and foremost important fluid which increases is blood. Okay, so you will see that a pregnant woman will have increased blood volume. So this can increase as much as by 50%. And why? Because blood is basically a connective tissue, so the growing fetus is connected to a mother, right? And all his or her requirements, okay, the facility to supply all the nutrients to the fetus, development of new build up tissues, etc., is all done by blood. Okay, so that is why we see that in case of pregnant women, their total blood volume increases. Okay, now here there is one more concept, that when we talk about hemoglobin, can anybody tell me what is a hemoglobin and what does it do? What is the function of hemoglobin? Anyone? What is hemoglobin? Please answer. What is hemoglobin? Anyone who knows what is a hemoglobin?
No, ma, no, ma.
No?
It's
You know what is
No, I
anemia?
the
don't.
level of the
Yeah. You know what is anemia?
No.
Okay. See, what happens is that everyone at least knows what are red blood cells. You people are aware of red blood cells. So what happens is that we have hemoglobin. Okay, so what does hemoglobin does? It is a part of your RBCs, red blood cells. Okay, so that is why they have a red color. Okay, because they have a pigment which is what? Hemoglobin. So what does this hemoglobin do is, this hemoglobin carries oxygen. Okay, this hemoglobin carries what? It is responsible for carrying oxygen. Okay, so in our body, hemoglobin helps as a carrier of oxygen. Okay, so that is the reason what happens is that anyone who has this lower concentration of hemoglobin, can you see here? This is written here. Okay, so the lower concentration of hemoglobin is termed as anemia. Okay, what is it termed? It is termed as, I'm writing in the chat box also, anemia. So what is anemia? Anemia is low HB. HB is what? Hemoglobin level, right? So what will happen is, initially when somebody has a low hemoglobin, we say that this person has anemia. And one of the signs and symptoms which is related to anemia is that you get tired easily. Okay, you work and there is constant feeling of being fatigued, constant feeling of tiredness, there is breathlessness. So from where this comes is because hemoglobin is responsible for carrying oxygen. Okay, so whenever I have low hemoglobin concentration, I have lesser amount of hemoglobin, lesser concentration of hemoglobin in my body, it will have an impact on my oxygen supply. Okay, and because of that, the condition which is known as anemia, one of the major sign and symptoms related to anemia is what? Breathlessness. Okay, so it is very important during pregnancy that you maintain a good hemoglobin level. Okay, because when women will go into labor, there will be blood loss. Okay, so if you have a lower hemoglobin level, it can cause certain complications during delivery, during pregnancy, and also the chances of low birth weight babies increase if the mother is anemic. Okay, and the child who is born will also be born with lower level of hemoglobin. So these are certain complications which are related in relation to pregnancy. But why here we are doing or studying this is that the normal concentration in case of women, okay, the WHO, World Health Organization, it states that the normal hemoglobin concentration, okay, in case of adult women should be 12 milligrams. It is written over here. Okay, but in case of pregnancy, it is like 11 milligrams. Okay, so during pregnancy, hemoglobin level can fall off. Why? Because your total blood volume has increased. So what is considered to be normal cutoff for non-pregnant women, which is 12, will usually drop down during pregnancy, and this is reduced to around 10 or 11 milligram, which is considered to be safe. So if I have two pregnant women, first one is non-pregnant, she's not pregnant, and her hemoglobin level is 12. Okay, so she will be considered normal. Okay, there is second woman who is not pregnant, right, and her hemoglobin level is 11. Okay, so you will be considering her to be what, anemic, because she is non-pregnant, and in case of non-pregnant, normal hemoglobin level is what, 12, right? But if the third woman is there who is pregnant and her hemoglobin level is also 11, you will be considering her to be normal. Why? Because she is pregnant, and in case of pregnancy, usually your hemoglobin level fall off. Why? Because there is high blood volume. Your blood volume increases, and this will decrease your total concentration of hemoglobin. Is this clear to everyone? Is this clear, class?
Yes, madam.
Yes.
You understand? So your blood volume is increasing during pregnancy, and this will result in lower concentration of hemoglobin. So what is considered to be a normal, hemoglobin level when you are non-pregnant, it will fall off, and 11 will be considered as the normal one. So the next, change in the body fluid which occurs is related to what? Lower hemoglobin levels. Okay. Then again, there will be many changes which you will be seeing in case of your digestive functioning. Okay, so basically there is a increased rate of absorption of very two important nutrients, which are calcium and iron. Okay, so actually what happens is our body is very intelligent. Okay, it knows that during pregnancy, two most important nutrient for me will be what? Calcium and iron. So whenever I am in that physiological state where the demand is high, my body automatically starts to have an increased rate of absorption. Okay, so you will naturally see that this is a natural thing which occurs, that during pregnancy, the rate of absorption of very important nutrients like calcium and iron automatically increases. And why does this increase? Because your body knows that you need to have higher amount of these nutrients, because you have to nourish the growing fetus also. Okay, but on the contrary, there are other negative changes which takes place in the digestive tract. So first one is less production and secretion of acid and juices. Okay, so these acids and juices help to digest and absorb food. Okay, but what happens is that as pregnancy progresses, we see that there is little lesser amount of juices and acids which are secreted, particularly in your stomach. And that is why what happens is pregnant women feel heavy. Okay, there is a constant feeling of heaviness and fullness, and they think that they cannot digest. Why? Because there is total concentration which is being lowered for the secretion of juices and acids in your stomach. Okay, then the other thing is what? That the growing fetus, okay, in the uterus will actually, as the weight will be put on, the fetus will grow in size, the fetus will put or exert pressure on the stomach. Okay, and what happens is the content of the stomach in this case, because the stomach is being pressured or pushed by the increasing weight of the child. Okay, so increasing the growing fetus will exert this pressure on the stomach. As a result, usually what happens is that all your stomach content, the food is pushed upwards. Okay, and this upward pushing of the food in your food pipe leads to some of the common things which are related with pregnancy, like constant feeling of nausea, vomiting, heartburns, etc. Okay, so this is all because of the exertion of pressure by the fetus on the stomach. And lastly, because the movement of the food is slower in the digestive tract. Okay, so because the tone of the muscles, the muscle integrity loses. So because of that, what happens is pregnant women can also feel constipated. Okay, so constipation is also one of the common things that occurs during pregnancy. Okay, lastly, obviously there will be changes in the body weight. So we usually say that on an average, women should adequately gain a weight of 8 to 10 kgs. Okay, so if she has gained lesser than that is also a problem. But higher weight gain can also lead to certain complications. So desirable weight gain should be around 8 to 10 kgs, okay, to her pre-pregnancy weight. And this is all contributed by a growing fetus. Okay, then there is increase in the size of the uterus. There is development of the placenta which takes place. There is increase and changes in the breast. Along with, we have also studied that your total blood volume, fluids, there is deposition of fat in the body, etc. So that is all related to your changes in the weight gain. But obviously you will say that this 8 to 10 kgs is not sudden. Okay, so trimester wise, a women should gain a weight. So you will see that usually in the first trimester there is a very, very little gain weight, but towards the end of the last trimester, like 7th, 8th, 9th month, the women tremendously gains the weight. Okay, so this is how it is divided. Then we also say that why weight gain is important, because when a woman or a pregnant woman is gaining weight, it indicates that the growing fetus is healthy. Okay, so actually gain in weight is actually one of the best indicators which can indicate a successful pregnancy. So as I told you, it has neither to be a little less than 8 kgs, but beyond that also can cause some of the problems. Okay, then we are coming on to the RDIs. So, whenever I talk about different recommendations, okay, of what food are need to be required in what amount, okay, all foods, all nutrients are equally important, but some of the important one include the total calories. Okay, so I know that, during pregnancy, the BMR will increase, though for most of the women, physical activity will not increase, rather it will decrease, right? But BMR is a major component that will increase, so my total calorie will also increase. So whenever we talk about recommendation, you will see that in comparison to an adult woman who is not pregnant, pregnant women will require some extra grams for calories, okay, because of her BMR thing. Okay, then obviously, because my protein requirements are based on body weight, we discussed it in the previous section. Okay, and we know that during pregnancy there will be a gain in the weight. Okay, so again, when you compare a pregnant woman and a non-pregnant woman will have a lower protein requirement in comparison to the pregnant woman, and that is also related because she has to support the growing tissues of the fetus. Okay, so there has to be cell growth support related to the fetus, etc. So that is all related to your protein requirement. So synthesis of all the new tissues, cells, etc. in both mother and fetus will cater to the higher demand of protein. Okay, so in your diet, protein will come from maybe legumes, pulses, some amount of cereals which you are consuming, milk and milk products. So the best quality protein will come from either milk and milk products or meat and meat products. But in certain countries and regions where non-vegetarian foods are not consumed that frequently, or the amounts are not consumed in adequate quantity, in that case we have to be more or less dependent on the pulses and legumes, okay, and cereals from which your protein will come in. Okay, all nutrients will be equally important, right? But the most important micronutrients that you need to take care of is iron. Okay, as I told you, hemoglobin thing, calcium, and apart from them, now we see that things like zinc, okay, and also vitamin B12, folic acid. These are nutrient of importance. Okay, so these are the nutritional requirements of pregnant women. Now, meal pattern of pregnant women is totally dependent that whether she's working, not working, what type of occupation she's involved in. But basically, again, you will be seeing that your meals should come and provide energy. So you will be having energy nutrients, particularly your carbs and fat should be adequate, protein should be there, calcium and iron. Okay, so we usually say that in case of pregnant and lactating women, the meal pattern is totally individualistic. Okay, so you must concentrate on meals which are small but frequent one, because if you are going to provide them with very heavy meals at a time, they will have problems related to digestion. Okay, so they can be varied meal pattern depending upon the comfort level of the pregnant women. Specific consideration, now, we saw that there are many physiological changes that occurs during pregnancy, right? So to deal with them, we have to make certain changes. Like the most common thing is morning sickness. Okay, so morning sickness is related to constant, feeling of nausea or vomiting. Though the name is morning sickness, but it can happen at any time. Okay, so in the evening, in the afternoon, also, if the woman is feeling nauseatic, vomited, okay, so that is all related to what is known as to be morning sickness. But usually for most of the women, this occurs in the morning time. Why? Because there is a large time gap between dinner and the breakfast. So after having the dinner, the breakfast will be either late, skipped off, or whatsoever, right? So because of that, what happens is there are higher chances of having morning sickness. The best way to prevent morning sickness is what? That along with the bed tea, the first thing you can consume is some carbohydrate rich snack. Okay, so this carbohydrate rich food or snack will help in relieving morning sickness. So this can be a simple slice of a bread, it can be some biscuit, rusk, or cookie. So anything which is rich in carbohydrate, because this will relieve the feeling of nausea and vomiting. To overcome heartburn, so heartburn is nothing, it is the constant feeling of feeling heavy or full, okay, which is related to undigested food. So the best way to prevent or overcome heartburn is that do not eat fried foods, very fatty food. Eat smaller meals at a time, but the more frequent ones. And lastly, because of constipation, because the fetus will exert pressure on stomach also, but at the same time the growing fetus exerts pressure on intestine also. There is less amount of juices and acids which are being secreted. The movement of food becomes hindered, or it is lowered because of losing muscles tonicity. So because of that, what happens is you have to focus on meals which provide you with good amount of fiber, okay, and along with that it should have good amounts of fluid in the diet. So constipation can be relieved by two things. First is plenty of fiber, and second is plenty of fluid in the diet, okay, and this will take care of your constipation. So this was the thing related to pregnancy. So now anything you want me to repeat, you want to add on, you're most welcome. Then I'll start with the lactation one. So anything, class? Is this pregnancy a concept clear to all of you?
Yes, it's clear.
Others? You want me to repeat
Yes,
anything?
it is clear. You can go on.
Clear? Okay. So with this, I'll move on to the next part that is related to lactation. So now, lactation is related to what we commonly call as breastfeeding period. Okay. So basically, it is just an extension over, pregnancy. So just after the baby is being delivered, the mother has to undergo a period of breastfeeding. Okay. Because, a fully developed newborn baby is totally dependent on his or her nutritional requirement on her mother. Okay, so a woman has to nourish a fully developed and rapidly growing baby with her breast milk, and this is a period which we call as lactation. Okay, now basically if you look at the lactation, so on an average, during the first 1.5 month, lactating women will secrete about 500 ml of milk in first month. Okay, and then as lactation progresses, this milk amount can increase. Okay, but on an average we say that it is about 850 ml of milk that has to be secreted. But again, this is dependent on that well nourished the mother is. Okay, so if the mother is not very well nourished, that can have impact on not only the quality of milk that is being secreted, but also the quantity. Okay, so quantity and quality both depends on the nutritional status of the mother. Now when I talk about lactation, in lactation also there is also increased in the BMR, and again whenever there is increase in BMR, that will lead to increased energy requirement, And energy requirement are also, increased because she has to breastfeed her child. Okay, but if you look at the recommendation, you will realize that the period of lactation has been divided into two phases. So you have 0 to 6 months of lactation and 6 to 12 months of lactation. Okay, because initially in 1 year, that 1 year phase has been divided into two. So first 6 months and 6 to 12 months. Why so? Because in the first 6 months, okay, whenever we you must have seen some children, kids breastfeeding mothers. So for the first 6 months, WHO recommends exclusive breastfeeding. What do we mean by exclusive breastfeeding? Nothing except for mother's milk, breast milk. Okay, because it states that all the requirements of the baby will be fulfilled by mother's milk only. Okay, but after the age of 6 months, weaning starts. Weaning means you have to introduce complementary food in the child's diet, because after 6 months of age, what will happen is only mother's milk will not be able to cater to the requirement of a growing child. So at 6 months of age, it becomes important for us to introduce complementary food in the child diet. Okay, and this will help in catering to their nutritional requirement. So you can see the difference. For 6 months, the child is totally dependent on breast milk. At 6 months of age, you will be introducing some top food. Okay, so maybe you are giving him some mashed fruits and vegetables, pureed things and things like that. Okay, some soft cooked porridges or soft cooked rice and things like that. So what is happening is, now there is a shift, there is a change. The child is having breast milk, but along with that, his or her nutritional requirements are being covered by the complementary food which he or she is having. Okay, so there is the lesser demand for the mother. So that is why if you compare first 6 months of lactation to the later, half of the lactation, you will see that requirement of protein and calorie is higher in first 6 months when it is a period of exclusive breastfeed than in the next 6 months. So these are the two important stages in case of your lactation. Okay, so in case of lactation also, energy is important along with your protein, vitamin A, etc. The most important thing that is related is your calcium. Okay, because obviously the mother has to secrete milk. Okay, so there has to be a special stress on the total calcium requirement. Now, in case of lactation, please remember that it has to be a mixture of cereal, pulses, milk and milk products. You have to include lot of green leafy vegetables, because that will be giving you some of the most important vitamins like vitamin B, vitamin C. Seasonal fruits have to be included. The little concept which is related to consumption of galactogogues. Okay, so in breastfeeding, the meal pattern is again dependent on individuals. Okay, so there is no fixed meal pattern that needs to be given to every mother who is breastfeeding. It has to be dependent on his or her lifestyle, if she is working or not working and things like that. Okay, but the specific consideration for all will be, first, there should be increased food intake. This should involve increase in the total fluid intake also. Okay, because she has to secrete breast milk, she's supplying breast milk. So because of that, you have to see that there is a total increase in her fluid intake. Important thing is that there are certain specific foods that might need to be omitted out. Okay, because foods which are highly flavored, which are very very strongly flavored, that might alter the taste of the breast milk. Okay, and therefore sometimes infant might not like to have that. Okay, there is aversion in that infant. So in that case, foods which are very very highly flavored can be eliminated. And you should also avoid taking alcohol, drugs, etc., which can interfere with the infant development, because that can cross the breast barrier. Okay, so through breast milk, this can cross the breast, this thing. So because of that, we say that certain drugs, etc., alcohol, smoking, this all should be avoided when you are breastfeeding. If you have to take certain medications, that has to be done in strict consultation with your doctor. Okay, then there is a small thing that will come, which is known as, I'll write in the chat box, galactogogues. So galactogogues are certain ingredients, and basically related to certain spices and condiments like because these are the things which are related to increased secretion of milk. So these are certain natural elements which will help in improvising the total lactation behavior. Okay, so whenever a mother is breastfeeding, okay, we usually say that she might include certain galactogogues in your diet. So now certain galactogogues granules are commercially available. Okay, so basically these can be synthetic or natural, plant, whatever. So these are related to inducing and maintaining the increased production of milk. Okay, so there are many galactogogues which are naturally present, like you have ginger, okay, you have thistle and things like that. So all these ingredients tend to be very effective in case of lactation. So this was your things related to lactation. So anything you want to ask in here? So galactogogues are certain herbs and spices, that's it. Okay, that will boost the process of lactation. Okay, now anything you want to discuss, add on? You're most welcome.
Hello, ma. I don't understand lactation.
Lactation is a period of
What is the
breastfeeding.
meaning of lactation?
Lactation means the period of
Breastfeeding.
breastfeeding. Okay. Yeah. So when mother is
Okay,
breastfeeding her
okay,
child, that phase is known as lactation.
okay. Period of
Okay.
breastfeeding. Yes, ma. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Others? Any other doubt? Anything else, class? Which is not clear? I will repeat that. Okay. So this was your unit 8. Now I'm moving on to unit 9. Unit 9 is related to infancy and the age of preschooler. Okay. So now we are going like a life cycle thing. Okay. So firstly, we had a word and discussion regarding adult. Then in case of adult, particularly women, we know that there are special two physiological phases which are of importance. So we discussed about what? Pregnancy and lactation. So now the child is delivered, and now we will be catering to the meal planning requirements for infants and preschoolers. Okay, so firstly I will be going through the period of infancy. So now when we talk about infants, that is a period of great growth. Okay, so if you will seeing the child in the first year, okay, so that child is what is to be referred to as an infant. Okay, so up till the age of 1 year or so, the child is referred to as an infant. Okay, and this is an intense period because here you will be seeing that this is a challenging period in terms of growth and development of a baby. Okay, now when I talk about growth, what is growth? So if I say the child is growing properly or not, and in usually layman terms also we say that the growth of the child is good or your child is not growing properly. So when I talk about growth, growth refers to increase in the size of the body. Okay, so any increase in the size of the body is usually termed as growth. And how do we see this growth in infants? By the birth weight. Okay, so usually we say that the healthy birth weight of the child should be somewhere around 3 kgs. Okay, if the child is born with a weight of less than 2.5 kgs, okay, then we say that this child is low birth weight. Okay, so please remember that the healthy weight of the child should be what? It should be around 3 kgs. So whenever I say that a child has a weight of less than 2.5 kgs, so usually any child who weighs less than 2.5 kgs at birth will be defined as a low birth weight child. Okay, so whenever I talk about infants and whenever I talk about whether this infant is growing properly or not, that is in terms in increase in the size of the body. Okay, so at birth, usually you will see that child will have a birth weight of around 2.5 to 3 kg. So 3 kg is ideal, but every child cannot be a 3 kg child. Okay, so the range is what, 2.5 to 3 kgs is a ideal range, though it should be around 3 kgs. But if this child has a birth weight of less than 2.5, you will be categorizing this child to be low birth weight. Okay, so whenever I talk about growth in infant, I usually say that by the first year. Okay, so basically the birth weight will triple. Okay, so you will say that birth weight will usually triple in the first year. Okay, so basically if a child is born with a birth weight of, let's say, 3 kgs, okay, so by the age of 1 year this child should be weighing 9 kgs. Okay, and then normally the body length, the length of the baby when at birth, is usually around 50 centimeters. So this 50 centimeter by the end of 1 year will be about 75 centimeter. So you will say that in comparison to height and weight, your weight will increase, at a much more rate in comparison to the height, which is true for us also. No, our weight fluctuates. It is an acute indicator. Whenever we eat too much, we eat less, whatever, the first change is seen in case of your weight. Okay, so usually any gain in the length or weight, okay, so these are the best indicators that will depict growth. Okay, so that is why initially in period of infancy and up till the age of 5 years, WHO recommends that you should be having a close look at the weight gain pattern of the child and height, because height and weight are the two most important consideration or criterias or indicators that indicate good growth in case of infants. Okay, now here also in case of infancy, you will see that the requirements are again divided into two groups. Okay, so we have requirement for first 6 months and then 6 to 12 months. Okay, again the concept is same, because for first 6 months, the child will be totally dependent on the breast milk, which is known as exclusive breastfeeding, which we just discussed in the lactation chapter. And then after the 6 months of age, because growth increases tremendously, and only mother's milk will not be able to cater to the requirements of the child. So there will be the concept of complementary feeding, weaning, etc. Okay, so that is why you will see that again infancy is divided into two periods. Then when I talk about meal planning for an infant, okay, so I know that for initially first 6 months, okay, it has to be only breast milk. Okay, but after 6 months, at the age of 6 months, you have to start with supplementary feeding. This is marked here, and please mark this to be important. And supplementary feeding is also referred or termed as weaning. WEANING. Okay, so what is weaning or supplementary feeding? When you introduce complementary feeding, okay, or food from, I just come, so food from diet, okay, along with continuous breastfeeding. So we are not saying that you have to stop breastfeeding. First 6 months it was only breastfeeding, that was termed as exclusive breastfeeding, right? But at the age of 6 months now, because growth cannot be supported by only mother's milk, you have to introduce normal foods in the child's diet. Okay, and that is what is termed as to be supplementary feeding or weaning. Okay, so obviously when I am beginning, I am, it is a gradual process. A child is 6 months old. I will not start him by giving him some hard food. I will be starting with, certain fruits and vegetables which are very, very soft. I will be mashing them. Okay, I will be grinding them. So that is all in the form of purees and things like that, which are easy for the child to swallow. It does not choke the child, and also which are very, very easy on the digestive tract, because initially there is development of the digestive tract. It has not developed fully. Okay, but as the age will progress, after 6-7 months, I will coming on to the foods which are semi solid, so I can give him or her well cooked porridges or rice and things like that. Okay, and later on we say that by the age of 1 year, the child should be eating from the family pot. Okay, so the correct age of starting with supplementary feeding, complementary feeding, or weaning is 6 months. Okay, then obviously what food to select. So you will be, after 6 months also, you will be continuing with providing breast milk, but along with that you will be focusing on supplementary food. Okay, Now, one of the most important, concepts in the breast milk is also related to the importance of colostrum. Okay, so when a mother starts to lactate, when mother starts to secrete milk just after delivery, we see that the milk which is secreted for initial 1 2 days, or this totally depends on the women. So for the first two feed does not resemble milk. Okay, it is a very thick, very yellowish type of fluid which is secreted from the breast. Okay, and this is known as colostrum. Actually, this colostrum is very very high on antibodies. Okay, it is very very high on white blood cells. It is also very very high on vitamin A. Okay, and that is why its color, its consistency nowhere resembles milk. Okay, and in some of the communities, basically in India also, so we have certain communities, and we have certain taboos and food fad related to colostrum, where we think that this is a yellowish type of liquid, very sticky liquid which is being secreted, so this is impure. Okay, or this is the stale milk and this should be discarded. And as a result, because of these wrong practices, most of the children are not fed with colostrum. So as a result, what happens is they are being devoid of that good properties of colostrum, being high in vitamin A and antibodies. So colostrum should be fed. Okay, then obviously in the child's diet, breast milk is the most important one. So we have many many benefits of breast milk. So it protects the infants from infections and food allergies. It will also, it is free of contamination. So this is a natural food. Okay, it is very very economical, easily available, and one of the most important thing is that it helps to develop a strong bond between mother and the child. Okay, so these are importance or benefits of breast milking. So whenever you are starting with the supplementary food, so that should actually start at the age of 6 months. So this is what I discussed with you. Okay, so when you are initially starting, you start with the liquid supplements, you move on to the semi-solid, and by the age of 1 year, solid supplements can be given. So normal home food can be introduced in the child's diet. Okay, these are the different examples which they have shown you. Then I'll come on to this concept. Just give me a second. So these are all the examples which they are giving you, that what can be given in liquid, semi-solids, or solids. Okay, so depending upon your region, you will be very well versed with all these things. Now again, they are giving you the meal pattern. So till here we discussed that there is no one single meal pattern that can go in for everyone. Okay, so depending upon the child, okay, his or her acceptance behavior, you can include combinations of supplementary feeds. Along with that, you obviously have to continue with breast milk. Then just give me a second. Sometimes what happens, there is a lactation failure that occurs. It's here, infant feeding in lactation failure. So we know that breast milk is one of the suitable milk which is there, which should be continued at least for 6 months exclusively, and later on with weaning. But sometimes there might be something which might get wrong, or which is wrong with the mother, so she is not able to feed the child. There might be many infections or cracking or infections related to breast, etc. And there might be also some problems related to the child. Okay, so the child may have a cleft palate, or maybe there is a problem in sucking, the child is very very weak, and things like that. So in that case, when the mother is unable to breastfeed the child, that is what is termed as lactation failure. Okay, so in that, obviously you have to be dependent on the top feeds which are there, commercially prepared feeds, or you can also go in for natural milk like cows, buffaloes, etc. But actually, out of all the milk, it is the cow's milk which is best suited for the infant, because when we take into account the composition of the milk, cow's milk is the best suited one. Okay, so lactation failure can come in exam, so please do that. Then we are coming on to the age of preschool. Okay, so preschool is the age group when that involves informal learning material, etc. Okay, so here you will be seeing that this is the most important period when a child will develop his or her food habits. Because being in preschool age means that child has started to interact with outside world. Okay, you are sending child for some preschools, or they will be playing with their counterparts, other children, and this is where they will be developing their most of the food habits. Okay, so in this case, RDIs will be normal, and the most important nutrients will be again the total calorie, protein, calcium, vitamin A, and iron. And actually, micronutrients becomes of much importance, because you will see that the prevalence of calcium deficiency, vitamin A deficiency, and iron deficiency occurs, most predominantly in these preschool years. Okay, now, whenever we talk about what foods to select, so there are many do's and don'ts in that. So actually, you will see that children are very picky when it comes to particular food items, particularly your fruits and green leafy vegetables, which they have special aversions to. Okay, so here also we must understand that children are in play years. Okay, they will not sit calmly, and they will not have very elaborate meals. Okay, so the meals which are given, which are planned, should be small and frequent meals. You can also give, some supplementary snacks in between two major meals. So between your lunch and dinner, you can have one, smaller snack, or between your breakfast and lunch, you can have some mid-morning snack and things like that. The most important and specific consideration when we talk about eating or meal pattern for the children is, first, the meal time for the children should be relaxing and enjoyable. Okay, so they will be exploring their food. Okay, so you can, just cut the food into bite-sized pieces, and they will be able to help themselves, because they will be coordinating hand mouth movements, etc., and they will explore. So firstly, you have to make the meal time for the children to be very relaxing and enjoyable. Second is, whenever you are introducing new food, offer one at a time. Okay, so first, feed smaller quantities to the child, and let him or her decide that whether she is liking this particular food item or not. Okay, and if not, it should not be a big issue. Just leave that particular thing for a time, introduce some other food, and later on you can again try to reintroduce that, but never be after the child that no, you have to have that, because that will definitely lead to rejection. Okay, then at this age, as I told you, that children develop their strong likes and dislikes. Okay, so basically, if milk is not liked by them, or green leafy vegetable is not like them, so you can change the form in which that is included. So if the child has aversion towards milk or not liking milk, you can give that in form of custard or some other thing. Okay, then as parents, we hold a much more responsible behavior, because you will see that whatever you are expressing in front of the children, they are most likely to pick it up. Okay, so basically, do not reveal, or do not highlight your likes and dislikes of particular food in front of children, because they will be greatly influenced by parents attitudes. Okay, then all the food should be served at a room temperature. So neither they should be very warm, or they should not be very cold also. Okay, usually you will see that children have high taste sensitivity. So if you remember, in case of elderly, we said that there is decreased number of taste buds. Okay, and that leads to decreased taste sensitivity. But in case of children, their taste buds are very highly sensitive. So that is why we say that in case of children, you just have to mildly flavor the food. You should not make it very spicy, because that can irritate the child. Okay, and this is the next point: it should not be very spicy, because that can irritate the digestive tract. And lastly, because they are physically more active. Okay, so basically the meals need to be very colorful, attractive. At the same time, try to make foods which are finger food. So what are finger food? Which can be easily rolled up and eaten up. So don't give kids things which are very messy, because they are not going to sit at one place and eat them. Okay, breakfast is very important, particularly if your child is going to some play school, etc., because that has been related to good mental and physical abilities. So these were certain points related to your preschool years. So anything you want me to discuss? Class, anything which I need to redo it? Can you all hear me, class?
Okay, madam. Thank you very much. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. All students are requested to put their email address in the chat box because it is compulsory to take the attendance. Because I think so there are some issue regarding your attendance because attendance has been starting from the class to till 5:30, but no one can put the attendance in LMS portal. If anything is there, any technical issue is there, we will discuss in the next counseling session to how to mark the attendance from student day.
But I already marked
Uh,
my attendance.
Okay, no issue. Please, all students are requested to mark their attendance their own because it is compulsory to attend the counseling session. It reflects the marks also. Okay.
So that's all. Any questions?
So thank you very much, madam. I
Yeah,
think
thank you, sir.